Welcome back to the grind for a video about the SoulDance Season Mythics. In this video, we are going to talk about the Mythics and their spell sets. I'm very excited about this season overall. With all the dragons, they all look very cool, and actually all of them are pretty fun to fly and look like they've got decent spell sets. First, we are going to talk about Calavore, which is the Dark Mythic Hunter. I'm excited that it's a Dark Hunter because I need a new Dark Dragon, specifically a Hunter. So for Calavore's spell set, his passive is Sin Eater. So when the dragon destroys a tower, he gains 25% of a bar of rage, so 0.25 rage of a bar. And this can be pretty helpful for maintaining rage because this is a pretty rage-hungry hunter. The next spell he has is Dirge, which is an active 1 rage white spell. They messed this up with the color in there, but it is a white spell that deals 2500% of the dragon's attack power as damage to a target area. So basically it's like a white death gaze, and I believe it has a 3 radius. So it might be challenging to hit 3 towers on the front of Island 3, but definitely can be done to hit 2 towers on most islands as well as 3 on Island 4. The next spell is Crossover, which is a white active 1 rage cloak that cloaks the dragon for 1.5 seconds, restores 33% ammo, and is briefly slowed during the cloak. After the cloak duration, the dragon deals 14% damage to nearby buildings, and then I believe it has 0-second cooldown. Now, if you cancel the cloak early, you don't get the damage that it deals, but it can be beneficial to use it to blink building tower shots or super shots and then get off a round of ammo before the towers fire again. But if you let the whole spell duration complete, then as soon as you uncloak, the towers will have their shots ready to fire. The next spell is Burial Rites, which you cycle between 2 spells. The first part is Eulogy, which is an active white 1 rage spell that increases the dragon's breath attack damage by 200% for 5 seconds. And the second part is Wake, which is a red spell that has 1 rage cost, and it will deal a small amount of damage to the towers in range as well as freeze them for 3.5 seconds. And then it has a 2-second cooldown. So the cooldown on Wake is actually shorter than the freeze duration, which allows you to use Eulogy again before the towers unfreeze. So there's actually a couple different ways to approach flying Calavore, and it depends on maybe a little bit of your flight style, whether or not there's a defender, and what their base setup is. You can't use the freeze unless you kill the red mage, but you also have to worry about a shield or storm tower. You have a couple different ways to very quickly take out some problematic towers with Dirge, the one-shot death gaze spell, as well as using Eulogy to increase your breath damage with your regular ammo shots. It makes it do quite a lot of damage. And so what you can do is you can approach the corner with Dirge and take out either the storm or the red mage right away, and then use Eulogy and spam down a couple towers and cloak before you take any shots from the towers. And then if you're quick enough, you can spam some ammo between cloaks and cloak 2 or 3 times and dodge those shots because there is no cooldown on it. And each time you cloak, you gain back 1/3 of your ammo, 33% of your ammo every time you cloak. So that helps to quickly get some ammo going during that 5 seconds of Eulogy to get as much damage as possible. But you got to make sure you prioritize the right towers, because if you get too close to a storm tower on the front of Island 4, it will activate and then protect the towers that you might be attacking. Another way to do it is to approach the corner and activate Eulogy on the turn so that you have enough damage to spam down a tower quickly, like the red mage, and then cloak before the towers recognize you. This prevents the earth flak or shield tower from going off, and then you can use wake to freeze the towers and break your cloak that way, and that will freeze them before they recognize you as well. After that, you can activate Eulogy because the freeze lasts long enough, and then you can spam down those towers which were frozen. Before you activate Eulogy and after you initially break the cloak to freeze, you can then use Dirge to take out some problematic towers in the far back, like on Island 4, such as a shield tower or an ice flak or a howitzer that may not recognize you quite yet, and this can be a very useful way to take out some of those problematic towers in the back. And I found when flying him that making sure that I focused on those back towers early on was very useful because I could freeze the towers on the front of island, and if I used my freeze and all my damage, and then I would end up finding if the whole back island was still alive, then I would have to cloak a bunch while waiting for things to come off cooldown, and I'd run out of rage and die. So you can see some of the spells and animations here. You can freeze the towers. You ideally want to use your ammo only when you have Eulogy active, and otherwise just let it refill so that you have a full bar when you activate Eulogy, because otherwise you don't really deal that much damage. It's really difficult to take out a tower, especially with a defender. And usually I like to approach with Eulogy active, but it can be okay like this to use your one-shot spell, cloak, and then use the freeze right after. That's also a very reasonable way to approach it, maybe a little bit more simple and easy to do for more flyers. What is really nice about Wake is that it is a freeze spell, so it stops shots mid-air. This is very good for mage shots as well as howitzer shots, but also just freezing any sort of shot as soon as you come out of cloak to prevent you from taking the damage or the super shots. Now we're going to talk about Sepulla, or Sepulla, however you would like to call it. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. This is the mythic earth sorcerer, and I think this dragon looks really cool. Now, Sepulla has Rest in Peace. It's a passive spell that has a warrior summon in front of him with 100% of the dragon's HP as health and 3% of the dragon's HP as attack damage. It absorbs 90% of the damage that the dragon receives, which appears as healing in your health bar. His spells include Deathly Shriek, which is an active white 2-rage spell that freezes all towers in range for, and that's a typo, it's actually for 2.5 seconds. And the towers take 75% increased damage from all sources after being frozen. That means your passive is going to do quite a bit more damage. And the way they designed this dragon was to have Sepulla's summon do the primarily most of the damage of this dragon. So you'll notice that Sepulla's spells don't really have damage in and of themselves, but are ways to both increase damage that the summon deals and protect the summon from taking too much damage. The next spell is Ashes to Ashes. It's an active white 1-rage spell that causes those towers to deal 50% less damage and take 25% increased damage. And if you cast it a second time on the same tower, then it will immediately destroy the tower, or you can cast it on another tower instead. And this spell has a 4-second cooldown, but with runes it will decrease the cooldown of Ashes to Ashes to, I think, 2.2 seconds. So that will definitely be a lot of help for this dragon. And finally, Marigold Mark is an active white no rage spell that marks a tower or monument outside of Atlas, unfortunately, and on destruction will restore 1 rage, and this will be very important for helping fund all your spells to maintain the protection of your summon, and it has a 4-second cooldown. So when flying this dragon, I felt like it had a lot going on. It's not really a challenging dragon to fly, but you have a lot of buttons that you can be pushing at all times. You have the 4-second cooldown mark, which you want to put as often as possible, but you want to make sure you place it on a tower that you know the summon is going to attack next or is already attacking. Then Ashes to Ashes with all the runes only has a 2.2 second cooldown, so you can use that pretty frequently, but most importantly, you want to make sure you're using Deathly Shriek to freeze the towers and protect your summon from taking damage. So you can see some of the spells here. The freeze is pretty good range. It does hit all 5 towers on an island and has actually decent range to the back of Island 4 when you're flying through the middle of Island 5. And then when you use all these spells on the towers, your basic swipe attacks do deal quite a bit of damage, so you don't want to forget to be doing that. The issue with Sepulla is that the summon can't really destroy all 3 towers on the front of an island, because especially if there's a defender healing them. So you need to use Ashes to Ashes and try to swipe at least one of those towers down, or if you can't, you'll have to use Ashes to Ashes again to destroy that tower. Otherwise, if you don't need that, you can use it to decrease the damage output from other towers on the far island that will also take increased damage from that Ashes to Ashes spell. So you have to find a balance, and this dragon may be challenging to solo an entire base, especially with a defender, but it is a pretty tanky summon, and if you can protect him well enough, then you can set up a base and weaken it significantly so that you can come through and clean it up with a second dragon. So I'm actually very excited for the Mythic Dragons this season. I think they're going to be very good, and I actually enjoyed flying them. Particularly, Calavore is an awesome hunter. I'm very excited about him. I definitely think he's the stronger Mythic this season, but a lot of players should enjoy flying Sepulla, I think, and should get reasonable success. Now, as always, there is the possibility that some of the details in this video have or will change prior to the official release of the dragons. I know they're still working on last minute stuff, so keep that in mind. But if there's major adjustments, I'll try to give another video to update you all with that. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're excited for this season, and I'll see you in the next video.